And, there's obviously a lot of roster battles going on, but one of the biggest ones right now is at wide receiver. And there was a guy that dropped the ball in James Proche. He fumbled the football on a punt return, and he had high expectations. Every offseason, he has high expectations. He usually has great practice reports. The media is usually hyping him up a lot. He's gone through some recent things in his personal life. But overall, he hasn't taken that jump that you would hope out of a wide receiver going into his third year like James Proche is. And you're looking at it and you're like, okay, you have Tylan Wallace, you have all these other guys that are fighting for a spot that are making a lot more plays. What do you think about James Proche and where he's at in the 53-man roster race and his future with Baltimore?
Man, as much as I love JP2, man, this season going forward, I don't see him being part of Baltimore anymore, man. And it's sad because he, like you said, we had high hopes, high expectations about him. When we heard it, you and I heard about him getting drafted, I believe right after Devin Duvernay or either right before Devin Duvernay.
It was like just after.
Okay. And we talked about it, and we put out a show, about how both of them combined only had 3 drop passes and how they, they were stars, a part of their offense, jump ball guys, get the contested catch and all that. Then you get put in a run heavy offense. Only Devin Duvernay was only able to get some little bit of level of success because he was being used. He was being used here and there. And then he showed that he could be efficient on special teams. But James Proche, just when it came to game time, he just couldn't make that leap, man. And I feel like he was being asked to do something that wasn't just that's not in the skill set. And then with everything that he's had going on in his personal life, it could be weighing down on the two. And then you add on Rashad Bateman, bringing in Odell, signing Nelson Aguilar, another former first-round pick in Laquan Treadwell. You get an undrafted guy like a Dante Demas, who was a big part of University of Maryland's offense. All these guys have produced on a high level and showed that they kind of belong. And it's looking like right now that James Proche is not rising to the occasion. I don't know what it is, but he has to shut out the outside noise and play like James Proche knows how to play. Because we've seen him play, decent football. It just right now is not translating as of yet. But I don't think he's going to be with us as much as I love the guy. And I think it's time for him to have a fresh start, man. I always wanted him to go to the Giants for some reason. Like, I feel like his comp was like Sterling Shepard. Like, he's an okay route runner, but he had solid hands when he was ready. But he's one of those engines that needs to get warmed up. It's like y'all put him in the game and just expect him to do great things, and no, he has to get acclimated. Like our old running backs when Kenyon Drake and Devontae Freeman, it didn't take them to like game 5 or game 6 for them to finally start to get the moving and rolling. But y'all put him in, one game due to some injuries, and y'all expect him to go for 150 something yards, 3 touchdowns. That's not James Proche game. It's not.
Yeah.
He's not ready. He's not built like that. You got to build him up. So I feel like he just needs a better opportunity somewhere else.
Yeah, and when you look at NFL players and wide receivers in particular, right? They were the guy in college, right? Like, you were the man. And then you get to the NFL and you don't get much of an opportunity your rookie year. You start to get some opportunities your second year and you start to think, okay, this is the breakout. And then the Ravens go out and, like you brought up, they bring in all these new guys. And you're like, whoa. And you kind of start to forget, like, I am that guy. I dominated college football, and it's just been so long since he's been able to have this. And when he finally did have success in the NFL, he had that 7 reception, 70-yard game.
Mm-hmm.
He got doghoused. He got harbaughted. It was like, oh, so like even when I'm playing well, I'm still, unable to find a groove in the NFL, and that's very difficult. And so it's just a situation where like I do feel bad for him. And I do like the situation of the Giants actually, because they are limiting in wide receivers. All their guys are basically slot players. They don't have anybody that can play on the outside. James Proche, as much as I like him, it's just very difficult for me to find a spot on this roster for him and his skill set because he's basically a backup punt returner, but he's not that good at backup punt returner.
Yeah.
And a wide receiver 6 or 7? When you can have a wide receiver 6 in a Tylan Wallace who's a gunner and who's a good gunner. And you're like, oh. He also produces a lot more when he plays wide receiver, but like I would rather have Tylan. And then if you want a bigger body, right, you go after a Sean Ryan, or you go after a Dante Demas, Shamar Bridges, Laquan Treadwell, one of the bigger guys that we have, fighting for those last spots. It's tough for James Proche right now, and I feel bad for him. Obviously, I'm rooting for him. I wish every player on the Ravens could make the 53, but it's just such a rough spot. He got screwed over because Greg Roman was his OC, and he wasn't able to develop him. And now that we finally have an offensive coordinator that can utilize his skill set, we signed a bunch of players that have a similar skill set that are proven veterans. And so I'm just like, I don't know. I think his time in Baltimore is definitely coming close to a close. I wish him the best. It's just very difficult for me to like write him off, but he just hasn't done it yet. And he hasn't had preseason games where I'm like, yes, there it is. Like he had the big catch against the Commanders last year. Right. I believe it was against the Commanders where the helmet comes off and he's
that crowd. That was.
But like that's about it. Like that's all I can remember of James Proche. And I'm like, darn, I feel like he's had so many moments like off the camera, right? Mm-hmm. Where it's him working and grinding in practice, and you just read about it and you're like, dude, they are so in on James Proche. But